Greetings aspirants, welcome to Narayana IAS. This is Karthik Moni, I'm here for daily news analysis. For today's session, I have picked up 5 important articles from Hindu as well as the Indian Express. The first article is about recent Supreme Court's probe on the losses faced by the investors due to the short selling happened because of the Hindenburg's report. That is the first article. And second article is about the debts problem highlighted by the IMF for India. The third article is about the 6 major missions by the other nations in 2024. And fourth article is about the direct benefit transfer and its functioning. And finally, we are going to discuss an article related to VVPAT and its role in ensuring transparency in the overall electoral process. Coming to the first article, we are going to discuss the recent Supreme Court's initiative. So now the Supreme Court directed the center to probe into the problems or uncertainties or volatility created in the secondary market because of the Hindenburg reports, right? So this is going to be the first article. So exam point of view, so it is relevant, even though it seems like less relevant because UPSC is not asking or giving more importance to the secondary market that is there. But here, this problem has to be seen from the perspective of the regulator, the functions and mandates of the regulatory institution, that is SEBI, that we have to know. So this is the UPSC relevance. So investors protection, legal framework that is there, and also regulatory lapses from SEBI. So these are the 2 dimensions that we have to know. We also had a previous question in 2013 and also 2015. The first question in 2013, there was a question related to the 2 regulatory agencies, that is SEBI and IRDA, about the efficacy of its products that is there. And 2015, it is related to the need for independence. Why the independence of the regulatory body is very much important for the effective functioning of regulatory bodies. So the regulatory bodies are functioning of the regulatory bodies or effective functioning of the regulatory bodies are very much important. So that's why we are considering this article and we are discussing this article. Right? Coming to the context. So recently the Hindenburg report was released and it highlighted the short selling position of some of the securities. So because of this report last year, there is a huge volatility in the secondary market, and because of this volatility in the secondary market, the retail investors face the huge loss. So Indian investors, that too retail investors, face the huge loss. So that's why now the Supreme Court directed the center to probe into the recent problem. So this is the context of this article. From this context, we have to know about the regulatory mandate of the regulating institution, and also we have to know about the concerns related to this current problem, right? So first we have to know about the SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. It is a statutory body which was created by a legislation, SEBI Act 1992, right? It is the statutory body. The statute itself mandated that it shall be the duty of this SEBI to protect the investors, interest of the investors, and also to promote the development of and to regulate the security markets. So they have to protect the interest of the investors, one mandate, and second mandate, they have to develop the secondary market, and also they wanted to regulate the securities market. So 3 mandates was given, explicitly mentioned in the SEBI Act 1992. So this is the function of the SEBI, right? Now we have to know about the concerns related to the recent issue. So there are 2 concerns. One is the concerns over the regulatory enforcement. Another one is concerns over the short selling, the tool of short selling, right? These 2 dimensions we have to know from the exam point of view. So first, concerns over the regulatory enforcement. The first problem is that the slow response. The first dimension, whenever there is the involvement of the investigation or issues related to the big corporates, major corporates, then the response of the institution, regulatory institution, is comparatively low. This is evident from the 2007 case, right? There was a stock manipulation case against Reliance. It took 8 years for SEBI to investigate, and it took 2 years to draft the final order. So considering this, like it took overall 10 years to complete the overall process. So it is acting very slow. So which means it will affect the interest of the investors, and also it is helping the or it is facilitating the institutions for breaching the mandate. So that is the first aspect. And also second and most important problem is that the orders from SEBI board members tends to take longer period than the assessing officers. So here I'll explain it in a brief manner. Here there are two different orders. One, the order issued by the assessing officer, and second one, the order issued by the members, the board members. So 1, 2. So assessing officer will give orders for the violation of the statute, right? If any breach in the functioning of such institution, then they'll come up with the order to punish them. Whereas the board members, the role of board members, the orders issued by the board members are very important, because those mandates or those orders given by the board members are very important to prevent the loopholes which is there in the functioning of the institution or functioning of the regulatory bodies. So what they have to do is they have to find the possible ways, and also they have to create legislation beforehand, before the occurrences of this scam, right? This is the mandate of the board members. But look at the cases. So these are the 6 regulations which we have, the regulatory framework of SEBI. So first we have the SEBI Stockbroker and Sub-Broker Regulation Act 1992 and SEBI Prohibition of Insider Trading Regulation Act 1992. So these two legislations came only after 1992 scam, Harshad Mehta scam, right? And apart from that, in 2003 we have 2 other regulations. One is Ombudsman Regulation and another one is Prohibition of Fraudulent and Unfair Trade Practices relating to Securities Market Regulations. And also in 2009 we have another regulation related to the investment protection. Right? So these 3 legislations came only after 2001 scam, that is Ketan Parekh scam. And finally in 2013 we have another regulation, Investment Advisor Regulation 2013, that came after 2013 NSEL scam. So here the regulatory supervision is post facto in nature rather than preempt. All the regulations came only after this scheme, occurrences of the scheme, right? So here the investors are getting suffered. That too, specifically the retail investors are getting affected. So that's why we are facing the problem. We are highlighting the concerns over the regulatory enforcement as a major problem when it comes to the SEBI as a regulating body, right? So next we have to know about the concerns over the short selling. Yes, short selling is nothing but selling the securities by the seller which who don't own. So here the seller is anticipating that there will be a reduction in the price or market price of the particular security, so that they will buy back in a cheaper price. So that is what we call it as short selling. So here there is a problem with the short selling, because of this short selling, because of this mechanism of short selling, there will be a huge volatility in the market, and ultimately the volatility in the market will affect the retail investors. So protecting the retail investors is very important, because they will suffer more because of such losses. That is one aspect. And also the retail investors participation is very important for the secondary market, for the investment, increase in the investment, right? The money flow will be there. So that is the second aspect. So short selling, we are facing a problem, right? So here also Hindenburg research anticipated the short selling positions in the security market, and that itself created the problem of increased volatility, right? So we are having 2 problems. One is with the regulatory enforcement, another one is with the problem of short selling. So now what we have to do, that we have to think, right? So from the enforcement point of view, the transparency is very much needed, and also the enforcement or the functioning of the board members has to be enforced, right? So here, by increasing the transparency or revealing our monthly report or quarterly report of the existing investigations will expedite the investigation of those cases, so that the trust on the regulatory body will get increased, right? So transparency will expedite the process. The expediting the process will increases the credibility of the institution. Look at the relation. So this is the first dimension for the first problem. Second aspect, when it comes to the short selling, right? Yes, short selling is creating volatility in the market. Yes, it has to be accepted, right? And also because of this volatility only, in 2005, the regulatory institution banned this practice. But even though it is within the ambit of the legal provisions, yes, it is legal. So here we have to accept this, and then we have to see this as an instrument to show the possible bubble of the market and the possible fraudulent activities in the market. And also we have to see this as a tool of dissenters, right? So acceptance of short selling positions is also another way forward in resolving such problems in the security markets. So next we have an article related to the debt burden in India. So here, the UPSC exam point of view, we have to know about the report mentioned by the IMF. That we have to know the major findings of the IMF report that is there. And apart from that, we have to know about the India's fiscal deficit position and also the consequent debt position of India that we have to know from the mains exam point of view. So prelims point of view, we have to know the concepts. So mains point of view, we have to know about the numbers and the position and also the consequences because of the existing position in India, right? Coming to the context, so recently the IMF released a report as per the Article 4 consultation. So in the IMF, we are having a provision called Article 4. So in that, the IMF used to have a consultation, bilateral consultation with each and every country regarding the economic position of a particular country. So from this aspect, IMF also conducted a consultation with India, and also it came up with few findings. So first thing is that it raised the concern about the long-term sustainability of the debt. So that is one thing. And also it mentioned the case that in the worst case, the debt could be 100% of the GDP by 2028. So this becomes the context of this article, and also the problem of seeing the debt sustainability in India. So from this context, we have to know about the debt position in India, and also we have to know the reasons why the debt in India have the possibility to increase by 2028, that is there. And finally, we have to know what will be the consequence when the debt position will reach or will increase to 100. So these things which we have to know from the mains exam point of view, right? So coming to the current status, the government's debt burden is 57.1% of GDP for the union government and also 28% for the state government. So please try to remember this number, 57 for union government and 28 for the state government. But this number in total it will be somewhere around 84%. But this number is very high when it comes to the FRBM Act's coming side, right? So as per the FRBM Act, so we have a target of reducing the center's debt position to 40% to the GDP ratio and 20% to the states. So in total, it should be 60%, but as of now, it is somewhere around 84%. So it is way higher than the targets fixed by the FRB. But look at the numbers. So between 2005-06 and 2021-22, so the number is 81% in 2005-06 and now it is 84%. Even though the ratio won't change much, the percentage itself very high that we have to understand. So this is the problem. And apart from that, when we look at the percentage of interest payments, So the budgetary estimates of 2022-23 shows that center will have to spend 9.4 lakh crore on interest payment. That will account 23.8% of the government's total expenditure and the 42.7% of its total revenue receipts. Right? These numbers are very important. Out of 100 rupees, we are paying 23 rupees as an interest payment, which means this 23 rupees is not available for the government for the productive spending, right? So it is not possible, which means we are spending more on interest payment, which means it is showing the extent of debt. The how much debt which we are having is what this number is correlating. So we have to pay more attention. So 81 number is also high, 23% is also high, right? So this is the current status of India when it comes to the debt positions. So now we have to know about the reason for the possible increase. Yes, the number is also high, existing number itself high, but the IMF in the worst case, it warned that it can go up to 100% because the situations which we are assessing or expecting will have the scope to increase the debt position in India, right? So these are some of the major reasons. The first and major reason is climate related responsibilities. Yes. So as of now, COP28 is getting concluded, right? So in that, the aspirations are high. The expectations of the global arena on India is very high. And India is also actively involving in reducing the emissions, right? So between 2023 to 2030 is very important. The responsibilities in front of India in this period is crucial to have a very strong impact or interventions on climate related activities, because India itself facing the problem of climate change. We are experiencing more disasters. Flooding is happening each and every region, and also we are facing the problem of increase in temperature. So many things which we are facing. So in order to tackle all those problems, India will be in a position to spend more on climate related responsibilities. This is going to be the first and important aspect that I want to highlight. And apart from that, external issues, yes. So not only this climate related problem, globally we are facing problem. The cost of borrowing is very high. The interest rate for the loans from the global arena is comparatively high. So that is the first problem. And also we are facing the supply chain disruptions. This supply chain disruptions will also have an impact on price volatilities, which means ultimately it will affect the physical position of the government. So in this aspect also, it will affect the overall debt position of India. If physical position of the government is affecting, which means the government will be pushed to borrow more, which means the debt burden will get increased. So in this aspect, the external position or external issues in the global arena is also be the reason for chances of increasing the debt burden for India, right? Apart from that, the spending on servicing the debt is also high. As I already mentioned, India is spending around 23.8% of its total expenditure as an interest, right? This spending is the amount and the percentage is very high, right? Which we are paying around 9.4 lakh crore as interest payment. This is also one of the reason why, because the physical space for a government to make productive actions will get shrunken because of the increased interest payment, which means the government will be pushed to borrow for its developmental needs, right? This is another aspect. And fourth important aspect is pandemic, right? During pandemic, that is fiscal year 2020, the debt condition is comparatively better when compared to the current position, because at that time it is only 75%. The debt to GDP ratio is only 75%. It is far better than this current 84%. So as of now, the government is in need of more spending to come out of the pandemic trauma. So in this aspect also, we were in a position to borrow more, right? So high spending. So need for high spending is there, and also because of this, the deficit the physical deficit will also get increased. If the deficit is increasing, the borrowing needs for borrowing will also increase. So increase in the borrowing will lead to the debt burden, right? And also, even though the revenue collection is okay, yes, recently it is mentioned that the GDP collections are reasonable. Even though the collection is reasonable, the extent of the needs of revenue is comparatively low. So the balance, the expenditure needs and the revenue inflow is comparatively imbalanced in nature. That is also another problem. And finally, the over-reliance of public spending is also one problem. Because comparatively in India, the private sector investment for the developmental needs is comparatively. This also poses another problem because as of now, India is in the high growth rate trajectory. And in order to sustain this high growth rate, investments are very much important. In order to sustain such investments and also in order to sustain the growth trajectory, India have to borrow more, right? So these are some of the possible reasons for increase in the debt burden in India. But we have to know, why is it a problem? Yes, it is a problem. That's why we are discussing this, right? So two major aspects I want to highlight here is that, so it reduces the fiscal space for borrowing, because if the debt burden is increased, like it will push any country to borrow just to pay the debt, right? The country will be forced to fall into the debt trap, right? No productive investment is possible from the borrowing. So this is what we call by the word debt trap. So it will push or it will reduce the fiscal scope of the government, and increased borrowing will lead India into the debt trap. That is possible. And second aspect, it affects the cost of borrowing. Right? How the cost of borrowing will get affected? Because the credit rating agencies, so increased debt to GDP ratio will lead to the downgrading India's position, the credit rating position by the global credit rating agencies, which means India will be in a position to pay more, or in order to pay more interest to get the loans. Right? Interest rate will be comparatively high if the credit rating agencies downgrades India's position. So in this aspect, the cost of borrowing will also get increased, right? So, and after that, it will affect the investors' confidence. Yes. So the debt to GDP ratio is one of the important parameters to assess the economic stability. If this position is in the degraded state, which means it affects the investors' confidence, which means the flow of fund from the external market will get affected. In this aspect, the India will face the problem of a resource crunch. Yes, the government will also be not in position to spend, and also the investors from the outsiders will also be not having the confidence to bring money into the India. So that will be the case, right? So considering this as a problem, and also the government have to see this highlight in the findings of the IMF report as an early warning situation to act immediately in the election year itself, because it is not only the medium-term problem, it can become an immediate problem because we are having an election this year. And also the current policies is also highlighting this problem, because as of now we are increasing the spending on fertilizer subsidy, and also we are in need of spending more on MNREGA scheme as well. This may pose a problem for India in terms of debt position, not in medium term. It is also possible to become a problem in immediate condition itself. So next we have an article related to the space missions, upcoming space missions. So exam point of view, these space missions are very important because we can expect some direct prelims question in the upcoming examination. We also had a question in 2016. So in that year, 2016, there was a question related to the electric plane tested by the NASA. So we can also expect questions related to the missions by the other space agencies. So space agencies of other nations also are possible. So that's why we have to give more importance to this article. So coming to the context, in the article itself, it mentioned about 6 important missions. that are ready to be launched in 2024. So most of them are going to the moons. So either for the Earth moon or moons of other planets. So 3 missions are going to the Earth's moon, and 1 mission is to the Europa, that is the moon of Jupiter, and another mission is to Mars moon, and finally we are having another mission to reach the asteroid. So these are the 6 missions which we are going to discuss from this article. So first we are having a NASA's Europa Clipper mission. So coming to the objective, this mission is to explore the Jupiter's moon, which is nothing but Europa. So Europa is a Jupiter's moon. Jupiter is having many number of moons. So out of which we are going to discuss, or we are going to launch a probe to investigate the Europa. So here, this particular moon is known for the ice surface and also the potential salt water ocean under the icy surface. So next, details about the mission. This mission is going to be launched in October 2024. This is not important, but we have to know that this will arrive by 2030. This is important because out of these 6 missions, this is going to be the longest distance in terms of distance and also longest mission in terms of time. So that's why this point is important. Apart from that, we have to know another detail of Falcon heavy rocket. It is owned by SpaceX. So factual point of view, we have to know the second point as well. So finally, we have to know about the significance. Yes, we already know that it is going to investigate the icy surface. Apart from that, surface geology and the subsurface ocean also it is going to investigate. So whenever the mission is going to investigate the water or icy water, then we have to relate the same with the possibility of habitability. So here also we are doing this research or investigation to check the habitability of extraterrestrial life. So apart from that, there is also another aspiration to check for the active gases in the particular planetary body, right? So this is about the NASA's Europa Clipper mission. So next we are having a most important Artemis 2 mission. So this is important because Artemis 2 is very important because this is going to be the second aspirational crewed mission to the moon, right? So aiming to return humans to moon. It's a human mission. So that is the importance. That is why we are considering this mission as a very important one. So coming to the mission details. So it used to carry 4 astronauts, and also we already tried Artemis 1. So Artemis 1 is a trial mission to check the overall functioning of the mission with the uncrewed capsule that was done in 2022. And apart from that significance point of view, we have to know that this is the first mission since 1972, because only in 1972 the Apollo 11 was launched, which carried the very important event of launch of humans on moon. So that is very important. Apart from that, this mission used to have carry the first women and also the first person of color to the moon. So these are some of the significance related to the Artemis mission. So exam point of view, we can expect some questions related to Artemis 2 mission because very important. Even India is also aspiring for such human missions to space, right? So next we are having the Viper. So the name itself very important. We have to know the exact abbreviation. So volatiles investigating polar exploration rover, right? So rover, yes. So it is a rover mission. So polar exploration. So this is giving a very important clue to know about the mission, because the polar exploration is very important when it comes to the moon, because even Chandrayaan, we tried to launch the mission in the southern pole of the moon. So that is there. So this is a clue to know the mission, right? Apart from that, volatiles. So volatiles here, it is relating to the idea of water or water vapor. It can be vaporized in the moon's atmosphere, and also it indicates the presence of CO2, because these two can vaporize in the moon's atmosphere. That's why we are calling it as volatiles. So we have to know the elements of the name itself. That is very important. And mission details, it is the NASA's first mobile robotic mission to the moon. So here I want to highlight one more thing. It is NASA's first mobile robotic mission. It is not world's first mobile robotic mission. So that we have to highlight. And also it is to the moon, right? And apart from that scientific focus, we have to know about the launch is going to be on the south poles, and also to investigate on volatiles like water and carbon dioxide. That I already discussed, right? But exam point of view, understanding point of view, we have to know one thing. Why we are, or as a human race, we are looking for southern pole. That is what the important area that we have to know from the exam point of view. Because southern pole is very important. We are still expecting the presence of icy water in the craters of the southern pole. That is one thing. And also this particular pole, the pole is completely shadowed region, permanently shadowed region from the solar rays. So that is there. So that is why we are giving more importance to the poles in the moon's mission. So that we have to know. So next we are having an important mission called Lunar Trailblazer and Prime 1 mission. So the name itself suggests that it is a mission related to the moon, right? So objectives, it is a part of NASA's Simplex program. Simplex, the name itself suggests that it is a small, low-cost planetary mission. Yes, like India, NASA is also looking for some similar low-budget missions. So that is the idea. Coming to the importance or significant features, it is an orbiter. It is an orbiter to the moon. So previously we had seen the Viper mission and Artemis mission. Artemis mission is a human mission to bring humans to the moon. That is the objective. Whereas Viper mission is to launch a rover on the South Pole. So that is the idea. But here it is orbiter, to orbit the moon, right? So the main idea is to measure the surface temperature and also wanted to map the water molecule locations and also to study the lunar water cycle. So next we have an one mission. So it is the first in situ resource utilization demonstration on the moon. So demonstration on the moon. So that we have to know. So even though it is not going to the actual the aspiration is not to do the experiment. It just wanted to experiment that it is working good. So that is the idea. So polar resources. So polar, I already mentioned the significance of the moon's polar region. That is there. So they wanted to do ice mining experiment, right? So here, why we are doing this? Because they wanted to understand the resources in the polar region, and also they wanted to know the idea of presence of water on the moon's polar region. So that is the important. So concentration or aspiration to find water in the moon's polar region is very important. Next we have an JAXA, Japanese Space Agency's Martian Moon Exploration MMX mission. So objective of this mission is to study the Mars moons. We are having Phobos and Deimos. So that too specifically we want to know about the origin of those moons, because the Mars is located near the asteroid belt. There is a possibility that these moons can be occurred from the asteroid belt. That is possible. So the Japanese Space Agency wanted to know the origin of those two moons of the Mars. So this is the objective. So when it comes to the mission details, yes, I already mentioned Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA, will be conducting this one. And also when it comes to the important features, it is quasi-orbit. Yes, orbiter will be there. It will orbit, and also it will collect a sample from the Phobos. So that these two things has to be considered. So collection of sample will also be there, and orbiting around the particular moon will also be there. In this, like, it will orbit around the moon Phobos, right? So this mission, the time period is around 3 years. That is also an additional information. And apart from that, we are having European Space Agency's HERA mission. So here, this mission wanted to do some investigation in the asteroids Didymos and Dimorphos. So these are the two important asteroids in the asteroid belt. So that is that. Previously, these two asteroids are known for the NASA's DART mission, because the NASA, by using the DART mission, they tested the kinetic impact test. So by using this test, the NASA mission hit the particular asteroid, and the path of the asteroid get deviated a little bit because of this impact. So for the human existence point of view, this DART mission is very important. So this DART mission is relevant because of this Deimos and Dimorphos asteroids. So now European Space Agency is not intended to conduct this kinetic impact test, but instead they wanted to study the physical properties of the asteroids. So that is the idea. So next we have an article related to the DBT. So exam point of view, so we have to know the perspectives regarding the universal basic income. So we should have some opinion on the universal basic income. Apart from that, we have to know about the direct benefit transfer, because we can expect some questions in the mains examination. We also had some questions in the previous examinations. In 2015, there was a question: the replacement of a price subsidy with the direct benefit transfer changes the scenario of subsidies in India. So that was the question asked in 2015. Apart from that, in 2022, also we had another question related to the scope of or significance of direct transfer scheme in improving or in reforming the government delivery system. So we are getting some questions related to the direct benefit transfer. So that's why we are also expecting some similar questions in the upcoming examination, right? Coming to the context, recently the Congress presidents projected the aspirational scheme which is mentioned in the Congress election agenda, the Nyaya scheme, as universal basic income scheme. So under this scheme, they wanted to secure the amount, the annual amount of around 60,000 to 70,000 to the poor women from the lower sections of the society. So that is the context of this article. So from this context, we have to know about what is meant by universal basic income, and also we have to know about whether this scheme can be considered as universal basic income scheme or not. And also, and most importantly, exam point of view, we have to know about the significance of having direct benefit transfer. So these are the dimensions that we have to cover. So coming to the first aspect, we have to know about the features of universal basic income. So it is non-excludable. So most important feature of universal basic income scheme is it is universal in nature. It should not exclude any section of the society irrespective of the economic capacity, so either from the rich or the poor section of the society. So regardless of the economic status of the section, like we have to provide the income support. So that is the first prime criteria of this particular scheme. Second aspect is that we have to withdraw the all other subsidies. So as of now, the government is giving more subsidies. For example, we are giving food subsidies by using the National Food Security Act, and also we are having the fertilizer subsidies. We had fuel subsidies. N number of subsidies are there. So while introducing the universal basic income, the basic criteria is that we have to withdraw all the subsidies from the market. And third aspect is that so income should be given instead of welfare schemes, right? We are giving more schemes to the society for the socio-economic development of the poor section, so to reduce the inequality. So here, if we are introducing the universal basic income scheme, here the idea is that we want to revoke all the existing schemes, welfare schemes which is there in the market, and then we have to introduce one scheme. The idea behind this revoking all the welfare measures and introducing one scheme is to cut down the bureaucratic cost, right? And finally, and most importantly, the taxation as a measure will be used to filter the beneficiary, because We are giving, regardless of the economic conditions of the citizen or people, we are giving the income. So which means we are not considering the inequality. So here the inequality will be considered by increasing the taxation. So these are the some of the basic features regarding the universal basic income scheme, right? So now we have to correlate with the existing scheme, the aspirational schemes and the existing schemes. So Nyay and PM Kisan. How it is different from the UBI scheme. So first aspect is that exist along other subsidies. Yes, the existing PM Kisan scheme, which is intended to give 6,000 rupees direct cash to the farmers. So we are not revoking the existing schemes. We are keeping this scheme or keeping this income transfer with the existing schemes. So it is not, so in this aspect, it is not related to, or it cannot be seen as the universal basic income scheme. The first dimension. Second dimension, the amount which we are giving is very small. So in the PM Kisan scheme, we are giving only 6,000 per annum. So this is very less. 6,000 per annum is very less when compared to the amount which is required for the basic sustenance for a year. So this is also there. And third aspect, it is not universal. For example, a Nyaya scheme, it is only for the poor, right? Whereas on the other case of PM Kisan, we are giving only to the farmers. So it is not universal in nature, it is targeted in nature. So in this aspect also, it cannot be seen as a universal basic income scheme. So now we have to know about why UBI is not attempted in it. Yes, we discussed about the features, we also discussed about the importance. But still, why India is not implementing this scheme? Yes, it will save the bureaucratic cost, it will reduce the complexity of the existing welfare scheme mechanisms, wastages, everything. But there is a problem, because the first one is the exorbitant amount, the amount which we are committing, because giving the or transferring amount to the people which is needed for the survival for the entire year will cost very high to the government. So that is the first aspect. Second aspect, the global experience. Even though the developed countries such as Switzerland, even they tried such things, but it ended up in a failure. That is there. And also countries like India, the population is very high. So that is the problem. And apart from that, it is not politically advisable. It is unpopular in nature, because they wanted to revoke all the existing subsidies, and also they wanted to raise the taxes. So in the preliminary basic phase, it will be opposed by the government, because revoking the existing schemes itself will create a negative impact to the voters, and also raising the tax is also a problematic situation for the voters. So in this aspect, this particular UBI is not politically advisable. So that is why it is not implemented, or it is not even advised in the India. So next we have to know about the arguments in support of direct benefit transfer. So now we have to know about the significance arguments in favor of direct benefit transfer, because UBI is also one of the direct benefit transfers. Right? So for that, we have to know about this, the significance. Already we have some schemes like PM Kisan, but we have to know the significance, why it is important for India. For example, first aspect, it will create the virtuous cycle. So, apart from breaking the vicious cycle, this direct benefit transfer can be seen from the perspective that it can create the virtuous cycle. For example, if you are giving some income, or we are transferring some income to the farmer, they will think from the perspective that they will start some small risk in investments. They will take some small step in investing the money. And apart from that, they will also look for the better seeds. This will increases the farm production, and also they will purchase good that is having a demand to get resold in the local market, and also they'll spend more for getting better jobs. In this aspect, the livelihood or the life of the particular section will get improved. As a concluding statement, we are highlighting that the direct benefit transfer or giving help is nothing but helping themselves. So cash transfer is actually helping the poor section. Yes, the small guaranteed income provide foundation to enable the people to transfer. Yes, this is actually led to the actual transformation. So that's why the continuation of the welfare program is advisable. That too, we have to concentrate more on more important aspects such as healthcare and education. The more productive or more important social institutions has to be given more importance when it comes to the welfare schemes. So next we have an article related to the VVPAT and the fresh debates around the VVPAT. So this is the article. So exam point of view, we have to know about what is meant by VVPAT from the prelims point of view, and also from the mains point of view, we have to know about the role of VVPAT in ensuring the transparency in the overall electoral process. Two dimensions. First dimension, prelims point of view. Second dimension from the mains point of view. So apart from that, when we are considering the syllabus, so it can be covered under the responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. Here I'm meant by the word constitutional bodies is related to the election commission. First dimension. Second aspect, we can also expect some questions in the GS paper 4 also. So we can consider this from the perspective of probity in governance. So two papers in the mains examinations. We also had a questions in the previous examination. In 2022, we had two questions related to this topic. The first question is about the role of election commission in the light of evolution of model code of conduct. So that is the first question. And also there was a question related to the electoral disputes, how it has to be settled and what are the remedies available for the aggrieved parties against their decisions. So something related to the electoral disputes. So UPSC is concentrating on this topic. So that's why we are discussing this article, right? So first, coming to the contest part, recently the representative of the India bloc, that is the opposition to the existing alliances. So they are seeking the chief election commissioner to have a discussion for giving the suggestions on the use of VVPATs. So why? Because previously the bloc passed a resolution. They wanted for the 100% verification of the VVPAT slips. So this was the resolution passed before by the India bloc. And also they are arguing that this verification will restore the public confidence. So this is the context of this article. From this context, we have to know about what is meant by VVPAT in brief. And also we have to know about the status of current audit provisions. And also we have to know about whether the 100% verification is needed or not, that we have to know, right? So VVPATs, voter verifiable paper audit trail, right? Yes, it is a printed slip showing the voter's choice. If I'm enrolling my votes, then the choice will be visible manually in a paper, printed paper, and it is visible to the voter. So that is the idea. And this is visible for 7 seconds, and after that the particular slip will get dropped into a box so that it will not be available to the voter, right? So here the system was introduced to enhance the transparency. Yes, this is very important. So the word transparency in the electoral process is very important, because transparency is very much important to generate trust. Transparency and trust, these two words are very important. Two values are very important when it comes to the electoral process, because electoral process itself very important to sustain the democracy. So try to relate all these terminologies, right? So coming to the audits, as of now we are doing the VVPAT trial for 5 polling stations per assembly seats. So after the Supreme Court judgment 2019. So previously, even though the idea of VVPAT started in 2013, the implementation of VVPAT started in 2019. The full-fledged implementation was happened only in 2019 election. So before that, in 2018, the Election Commission gave a mandate that we have to do the VVPAT audit at least for 1 polling station per assembly's constituency, right? one polling booth. So they will select randomly, one polling booth randomly in one assembly constituency. So this is what the mandate given by the Election Commission in 2018, right? Then public interest litigation was filed in 2019 with the Supreme Court. So in that, the Supreme Court wanted the Election Commission to do, instead of one, they directed the Election Commission to do 5 polling booths, right? Yes. So as of now, based on the recommendation of the, direction of the Supreme Court, we are following that, doing VVPAT audit trial for 5 polling booths per assembly constituency. So this is the existing mandate available to us, right? So now, meanwhile, Election Commission wanted to do a scientific sampling. Instead of doing it in a random way, 1, 5, they wanted to arrive a number based on the decisions given by the technical institute. So they approached an institution called Indian Statistical Institute, right? So after considering the recommendation of Indian Statistical Institute, they wanted to do the random sampling for 479 EVMs. Look at the word, it is not the polling booth. They wanted us to do only the random sampling only for 479 electronic voting machines, not even the polling booths. So there is a huge deviations. So Indian Statistical Institute's number is 479 EVM, whereas Supreme Court direction and the current practices, like we are having 4,000 assembly seats. If we are considering this like 5 polling booth for each assembly constituency, it will come around 20,000. 479 EVMs on one side, 20,000 polling booths on the other side. So there is a huge difference. So that is the problem. And apart from that, even we are considering this as a dilemma. So now this India bloc is asking the Election Commission to implement 100% VVPAT. So here we have to know whether it is needed or not. So before that, we have to know about the significance of the VVPAT for free and fair trial. The first thing is in removing the suspicion or ensuring the credibility on electronic voting machines, because we are facing the problem in bringing trust on the electoral process by using the electronic voting machines. So that is the problem. So in order to address this problem, we need to have this VVPAT as a mechanism for verification and cross verification. So verification, by the word I meant that like it will give the verification to the individual voter that the vote which I casted is right. So that is the first dimension. Second dimension, that in the polling booth itself we can use the cross verification of the functioning of the electoral voting machines by cross verifying it with the VVPAT papers. So this is possible. So in this aspect, by bringing transparency to the individual voters and also the overall electoral processes, we can able to build the confidence of the voter. So this is the first aspect. Second aspect, it will provide the material evidence in case of any electoral disputes. Then this will give the VVPAT papers will become a material evidence for the judiciary to check the validity of the electoral process. So that is also there. Yes, it will give a legal basis for the adjudication. And finally, the possibility of the recount is also possible. Yes, once the counting is done, if we want to do the recounting, then we will not be able to rely on the EVM. Instead, what we can do is we can use this VVPAT paper for the recounting mechanism. So these are some of these basic significance, very important significant that we have to know. So now coming to the need for 100% audit. So here the Election Commission is not okay with the demand. The Election Commission is actually against the 100% verification of VVPAT. Why? Because there is a logistic challenge, because we have to do this cross verification manually, so that we have to send the human resources to each and every part of the India. So it is a logistic, it poses a high logistic challenge. That is the first dimension. Second dimension, there is a possibility of human error. While doing the counting, there is a possibility of human error. That is also we have to consider. And finally, the existing sampling mechanism which we are doing, five audit trial for 5 polling booths or 1 polling booth. So that itself is showing the efficacy. So finally and most importantly, the existing mechanism of random sampling of 1 polling booth or 5 polling booth in the assembly constituency itself a robust mechanism, and it is enough to justify the accuracy of the electoral process. Now let's try some of the prelims practice question. Coming to the first question, consider the following statements about the kinetic impact technique related to space missions. So we discussed this term, that kinetic impact technique, with the European Space Agency's HERA mission. So coming to the statements, it works on the principle of conservation of momentum. Yes, it is true. And also the DART mission by NASA used it to test the planetary defense. Yes, both these statements are correct. Coming to the options, which of the above statements are correct? Both the statements are correct. So option C is right. Both 1 and 2. Yes, option C is right. Coming to the second question, in the context of upcoming space missions and their parent agencies, considering the following pass. So Martian moon exploration, no, it is not by the NASA, it is by the Japanese space agency, JAXA. And second one, Europa Clipper mission, it is not by the European Space Agency, it is by the NASA. And finally, Lunar Trailblazer mission, and it is not by the JAXA, it is by the NASA. So all 3 pairs are wrong. So coming to the options, which of the following above pair is currently matched? So none of the above. So option is Delhi, D. Yes, the correct answer is D. So coming to the third question, consider the following statements about the direct benefit transfers scheme in India. So DBT has completely eliminated. So extreme word, right? So whenever we are finding such extreme words, we have to be very careful. So this statement is wrong. Has completely eliminated the role of intermediaries in the welfare delivery. No, it is not at all possible also. So first statement is wrong. Second statement, Aadhaar is mandatory for beneficiaries to receive DBT transfers. No, Aadhaar is not mandatory. So it was directed by the Supreme Court itself. So second statement is also wrong. DBT has successfully addressed all issues of financial exclusion in India. No, here also they are using the extreme word all issues. So here also we have to pay attention. So this statement is also wrong. So the public financial management system plays a crucial role in DBT implementation. Yes, factually this statement is correct. So coming to the options, which of the above statements are correct? So option C, 4 only. Yes, option C is right. So coming to the fourth question, consider the following statements about Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. It sets a target of 60% debt to GDP ratio to central, and it set target of 40% debt to GDP ratio to state government. So both the statements are wrong, because it is not 60%, for center it is 40%, whereas for state government it is 20%. As a total, the limit should not go beyond 60%. But it is not absolute. In cases of emergency, the state and center can exceed the limit. So it provides space to exceed the debit limit set as a target during the time of emergency. Yes, it is true. Third statement is correct. So first 2 statements are wrong. Third statement is correct. So how many of the above statements are correct? Only 1 statement. Option A is right. Yes, option A is correct. Coming to the last question, consider the following statements regarding the election system and electoral reforms in India. So VVPATs are intended to confirm each vote's integrity. Yes, it is true. So whenever the voter polling the vote in the EVM machine, the particular vote the choice of the voter will get displayed in a printed paper. So that will be there. Yes, first statement is correct. And second statement, VVPAT audit for all EVM machines are mandatory. No, it is not mandatory. So as of now, as per the Supreme Court's direction, so Supreme Court asked Election Commission to do that VVPAT audit only for 5 random polls in each assembly constituency. So it is not mandatory for all the EVMs. No, it is not possible at all, and also it is not mandatory. So second statement is wrong. So which of the above statements are correct? So first statement is correct, that is A, one only. Yes, answer A is right. Now let's try one mains practice question. In the context of its statutory functions of investor protection and regulation of securities market, critically analyze the regulatory lapses in the functioning of SEBI. So in the introduction, we can write the institution of SEBI as a regulatory body, statutory body, and also mention about the statutory functions given as a mandate in the SEBI Act 1992. That can be a possible introduction. And after that, in the body part, so mention the 2 broad regulatory shortcomings. One is, so intervention or investigation or action against the big corporation, major corporation on one area. That is the first problem. And second problem is about its supervision. Regulatory supervision is post facto in nature rather than preemptive fashion. This is visible from all the cases right from 1990s. So all the regulations were brought only after these caps. So these are the second dimension. So post facto intervention. So this has to be highlighted. And also analyze the nature of such lapses, just to bring the brief idea about each and everything as a justification for these 2 shortcomings. So in the conclusion, what we have to do is we have to write the requirements of transparency in addressing the concern. Because transparency will increases the pace of investigation, and also it will increases or expedite the process of remedial measures that is possible. In this aspect, the trust of the particular regulatory institution will get increased. So in this aspect, we can conclude this question. So that is possible. So that's the end of this discussion. Thanks for watching. So do like, share and comment the video, and also don't forget to subscribe the channel. Thank you.